Hello and welcome to Shift the Field TV. I'm Darla LeDoux. I'm the founder of Sourced and the author of two books on the business of transformation. And I feel like I kind of want to mention my first book today, which is called Retreat and Grow Rich, because we're going to talk about retreats today. And I have with me the fabulous Lisa Dunford Dickman. And Lisa is a certified sourced leader. She's a retreat host. I'll share a little bit more about her background in a second. But Lisa, hi, welcome.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so excited. For those watching this on YouTube, you can see Lisa's got an elephant photo above her shoulder over there. She leads retreats to Africa and helps people discover the magic. And so I asked her if she would join us today and share about her recent retreat and who she got to be as she led it, and what it was like to bring people to another country on a journey of transformation. So we're going to dive into that in just a moment. But I'm going to share Lisa's bio as well as ask a few questions about living sourced, which is what I like to talk about. And then we're going to dive into how that played out on retreat. So Lisa Dunford Dickman is a transformational coach, writer, and creative who lives life as a sacred creative adventure. And we're going to hear a lot about that. She doesn't believe in limits. Lisa loves exploring both the internal and external worlds and helping others to do the same. Before becoming a coach and discovering art, she traveled the globe co-authoring more than 40 Lonely Planet travel guidebooks, which I'll just say, when I learned that, I felt like a fangirl because I did so much travel with my Lonely Planet books. It was definitely my go-to. Lisa now calls a river east of Houston home, but she's lived in 6 countries and speaks 4 languages, 5 if you count Texan.
It's definitely a different language sometimes.
I got y'all like really integrated into my vernacular over here. So totally get that. I want to start, we here at Sourced talk about what it is to live sourced. I have a vision of a world where we kind of see each other and know you get it, I get it. And we both are trusting our own inner knowing. I believe that makes the world exhale, let your shoulders release, know you can be fully yourself in the world with this other person. So I'm curious your take on that. What's your perspective on how living sourced makes a difference?
It 100% makes a difference. I couldn't be living the life I am without it, genuinely, because what it's done for me is instill a confidence. Like I've always trusted my inner knowing. I've always been very intuitively led. All those decisions I've made were very inner guided. But the Source Leadership Program and truly living sourced has instilled in me a confidence because I know that when I'm tuning in, that first of all, I'm not creating alone. I'm co-creating with Source, right? So I don't have to hold it all. I don't have to do it all. I don't have to fix it all, control it all. Everything is happening exactly as it's meant to be happening when I'm aligning with that inner knowing, when I'm co-creating with Source. And that's really built a confidence in me because I can trust myself with Source.
That's awesome. I love that I'm not creating alone. And I think, such a big part of the work that you do in the world is helping people be creative and access their creative energy. So, not creating alone, a lot of times people can feel like being creative is selfish, right? I'm just going to go be creative alone in my room, but you're not alone. So, I love that perspective. You talked about always being intuitively guided. This is something that really stands out to me about you. For as long as I've known you, it's been several years since I learned of you and your work and your journeys. We teach magic here, right? The magic quiz, and people can get the quiz under this video, I'm sure. Expansion magic is your go-to. And expansion magic is this deep belief that the universe is abundant, that more is possible, that why not you, that you can expand to the level of your desire. I'd love to hear a little bit before you were a coach, before you were a creative, before you knew about this work in this way, how did that guide you? Like, what was it like to follow and just decide, I can be a writer for Lonely Planet, or I'm going to go live in this country? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's one of my most deeply held beliefs that so much more is possible than most of us think. I've just always known that. So when I was in university and Hungary was still behind the Iron Curtain, that's where my grandfather had originally come from. I just knew that someday I would study there. It happened. The Iron Curtain fell, the wall came down. I studied the first semester that people were allowed to go. I just see possibility. And I think the thing for me that's most noteworthy is that I don't think that's odd. Like that other people are like, oh, you just decided to go to. So after graduation, I decided to move to Slovakia because I had a degree in international affairs and I wanted an international job, but you couldn't get an international job without experience. You couldn't get experience without a job. So my boyfriend at the time and I decided we were going to go get some. And Slovakia was a compromise because I had studied in Hungary, which is right next door. He had studied in St. Petersburg, so he spoke Russian, and everyone in Slovakia, at the time it was Czechoslovakia, knew Russian. And so Slovakia was a compromise, and that seemed perfectly logical to me. Other people later are like, you did what? And it just seemed perfectly logical. We knew one person who lived in Prague and they had some contacts in Slovakia, and Prague was overdone anyway, we thought. Everybody had been there and done that. So we wanted a new adventure. So we were going to go to Bratislava and we were going to figure it out. And we did. I worked odd jobs. I made contacts. I ended up working at the embassy for the U.S. Agency for International Development for 2 years.
So when people are saying, how did you do that? Why would you do that? What's your experience? Because that's, I can think of some decisions I made when I was younger that I just didn't have any conditioning not to, right? What's your take on how we're conditioned to think smaller?
That's just everyone's way of thinking. That's the societal belief. And we all learn it, and it's understandable. We learn it from our parents. They don't want us to get hurt, or our caretakers. We all learn conditioning, right? We learn safety strategies. We learn if we speak out, somebody's going to shut us down. If we try big things, we might fail, and that would mean something bad about us. It's safer to stay on this small, narrow path. That's what all conventional wisdom says. But really, it seems to me like that is more dangerous than staying on that small path. Staying it safe sounds more dangerous to me than trying life as a big experience.
Dangerous,
a grand adventure. And dangerous in not living. You only have this one life. We only get this one life that we know of. There is so much possible, right? And it's so amazing. And there are so many wondrous things out there. If we only stay in this narrow lane, the danger is us not living.
As a leader and someone who's helping people to see that more is possible, how do you navigate when people don't see it, right? So let's say whether it's a client or, a friend or someone in your world, and you can see that they don't see possibility, and to you it feels obvious. How do you navigate that?
So that's actually part of what I do as a coach. Being a friend is different because I don't have a commitment, because I don't know that person actually wants to change or go towards their dreams. But if they've signed up with me as a client, I know they have that commitment. And what I actually do is help them hold that until they're able to see it, because I can see it and I know it's possible. And I help them get really clear on those safety strategies, those protection mechanisms that served them once and serve them really, really well, and help them love that part of themselves that wants to keep them stuck in those strategies for a very good reason, because it wants to keep you safe, and to really love that part of you instead of what we usually do is beat ourselves up about it. Like, oh, I have this dream, or, oh, I don't know what my dream is. Like, and I should know what my dream is. And we just beat up ourselves, beat up that loving little part of us that's just trying to take care of us. And that's actually the opposite of what we need.
When you think about the survival strategies and how they worked, what's been your experience with that? Or what advice would you give to someone who's maybe aware that they're trying to stay safe? I see this a lot. I'm sure you do. Like, I know I need to put myself out there, but fill in the blank. And then being mad at themselves about it.
Yeah.
What guidance would you have about that?
I would start by giving yourself a break. Just like be a little more gentle with yourself. I would start with asking yourself better questions, like, what might be right about this situation? What might be right about playing it small for me until I'm ready to play it bigger? Like, to really hold and love and honor that part of you that's just serving you. Those strategies are all for you. And so just to like make a tiny step towards lightening up on it and loving that part of yourself instead of beating yourself up, and knowing exactly where you are. And this is part of being source. Exactly where you are is exactly where you're meant to be. That doesn't mean you're always going to be there. That doesn't mean you can't go somewhere new, but you have to love what is before you can move on.
Makes me think of, in our model, which I know you know, the center is receiving truth. And it's really what you're highlighting is it's receiving truth with love, embracing like, oh, this is how I've been being. And I was being that way because it made sense. I am being that way because it made sense. I can be receptive to all of it. And until we
Yes,
can do that, we can't really shift our energy. We're just resisting, right? So when you said beating up on yourself, that energy is the resistance to what is. And there's so much gold in what is.
exactly. Exactly. And that there is treasure in that. And like in whatever strategy you used has a kernel of something that you can use for your further development also.
Absolutely. So let's look at yours, your truth, and your expansion. So you decided to host a retreat, and I know you kind of grappled with, well, do I do a small one first? Should I have, just a few people come to my house first, which is a strategy some people do. And then in true expansion magic fashion, you said, nope, we're going to Africa. I want to hear about the retreat, but I first just want to hear a little bit about you and your process of choosing that. I know you have a history with South Africa. So can you speak a little bit to that decision process?
Absolutely. So I had been to South Africa 5 times at that point, and I was just so drawn to the place. There's something about being in the African wild. They call it the bush. Being in the bush, it's so much easier to see what's real and what's not real. This life and death struggle happening here with these impala and this cheetah, real. What my daughter-in-law thinks of me, not so real. And there's just a power to being on that land, to seeing the primal nature unfold. There's a power to being in what is all of our ancestral homeland at one point in history, right? And I want to be respectful. Some of us have come from there more recently than others. But at a very primal level, it's where all of humanity started.
Mm-hmm.
And you can feel that in your body when you're there, if you're sensitive and you're in the land. And there's also just a power to being outside and present in nature all day long, out on drive. And so I'd always felt really compelled and excited, and you would ask me about it, and I would just start talking a mile a minute about the lions and the Africa and everything. When I felt into the decision, it really came down to what felt most alive in my body. It was so exciting to me to take people to this place that I love and have them experience the wonder.
Mm.
And then the power of holding it with a transformational container where we're getting clear on what that our truths are, shifting so we can rise in our new energy. Like that combined with Africa was just so intriguing to me. And really, as an expansion magician, small doesn't feel good to me. It just doesn't feel good. Like it didn't even seem big to me to take my first retreat to Africa.
Mm.
Like maybe I think 2 weeks before we went, it occurred to me that I had signed everyone up for 8 days. And I was like, who decided that? 8 days is a long time. What was I thinking? But these big things really don't seem like a thing to me.
Mm.
Like I tune in, I know what is the next right step, and I just keep doing the next right step. The next right step was 8 days or planning this or whatever. It didn't even occur to me. Honestly, I know this is going to sound maybe a little silly, but it didn't even occur to me that it was a big deal taking my first retreat to Africa and taking 6 women for 8 days. That didn't even occur to me as a big deal. Like it just felt so, it was the next right step.
I'm sure people listening can feel your heart connection to the land and the experience and the animals and nature. Like it just feels so alive in the space. In my experience in hosting for a long time, when there's that connection that lights you up, when you're clear about something, right? And I don't, for everybody, it's not the location. It could be an activity that's going to happen or a conversation or an outcome. It could be an experience or a guest teacher or something. But when there's that knowing of the leader that this is it. This is going to make a difference. This is right for me. This is right for you. We all get to play. It changes everything. Gosh, I'm thinking of the people who would think it's a big deal and maybe they don't have Africa on their radar, but there's something. There's something like, ooh, I've wanted to bring people here since I was there, or I would love to have people meet me on the top of a mountain for a coaching session or whatever it might be, right? Whatever that wild dream is, what would you say to them?
That it really all happens like one next right step at a time. You can't jump to the top of the mountain. You have to take that next step. Like you have to just keep taking baby steps towards it, right? When you're trying to leap, that's when you kind of feel the resistance because you're making too big a jump, right? So doing the legwork and doing the minor things, but also just getting really clear on what those strategies might be, like what that resistance might be, like why you're just dreaming about it, why it's been on your radar for so long, but you haven't taken any steps towards it. There's a very good reason. And there's a part of you that deserves love for not going there yet. So twofold, I would start by looking at the resistance and also just take baby steps. Look into mountains you might want to climb, just inch towards your dream so that you take it in bite-sized pieces. But you really do have to love that part of you that's going to be screaming, no, don't do it. No, don't do it, right?
Let's speak to the retreat hosts, the people who are doing it, who have one on the books or have held several retreats, but maybe haven't gone as deep or as far, or they're ready to up level to a different audience or something like that, Lisa. So 6 women, 8 days. What'd you learn?
Oh my gosh, I learned so much. And it ended up, one person did drop out at the last moment. So it did end up being 5, which was also sourced. Like that whole experience was part of the learning experience and was beautiful, was absolutely beautiful. But what I learned was that by taking this big, bold step towards my dreams, I really loved who it was calling me to be. Like, I'm doing this thing. I'm taking people to Africa. I'm 100% in. I mean, I was 100% in money-wise. I was 100% in. Money-wise was a big deal. It was a lot of money. And I knew that whatever happens, even if, heaven forbid, I lose the money, that it was absolutely aligned because I had a deep inner knowing that this is what I needed to be doing. I was going to do what it takes to get there. So I had this big dream out here, and I really loved who it called me into being. I had to step up. I did all kinds of things I would not have normally done. I was a sponsor at someone's retreat in Park City, which I loved doing. I hosted my own animal oracle parties with 20 people here locally. to look at the signs and serendipities. I went deep into my views about money and receiving money. I learned to have marketing conversations, invitation calls, which was not my favorite thing. But what I realized was that those were actually the juiciest calls. Because when you get to people's objections, that's when you're starting to get clear on what their strategy is, and you begin to see beyond it. Like, so you really, that's really the juicy part, is when you get to people's objections, right? I get to share my excitement about this place, this experience, and the transformation that I know they're going to have. The way I invited people in was with the question, what would you create differently in this world if you knew, like you knew, like you knew that you are so loved and supported?
It's beautiful.
And it was so fun having those conversations. I mean, it was challenging,
Right.
but it's
Yeah,
actually fun too.
There's two things that I really want to highlight. First, I want to acknowledge the all in. So I want to highlight that for people. Like you, and all in, I know, is a sourced energy for you. Like it makes you come alive. So just going all in, for those who want to steal that idea. And then the marketing conversation and the invitation. And I'm guessing that there were times where you thought, oh, I should be doing that. Like before Africa was on the books, where you thought, oh, I should be having marketing conversations and inviting people and getting featured on podcasts and things like that. But then this thing came into focus for you that had you be willing to do the things that maybe previously you didn't want to do.
Yes, 100%.
And then
100%.
you're describing it as juicy. And I'm really present with, because I've coached people through that, as you know, and been there myself, that juicy comes with a lot of risk. Like the juice in what people might say that they want to create if they really believed they were loved. The risk of what the reason they might say no, right? Like, oh, this just doesn't resonate, or this thing that you love so much just does nothing for me, right? and to be able to receive that, we have to be equally able to receive that as to receive enthusiasm and money.
Oh, yes.
So
Oh,
talk
yes.
a little bit about that.
So much internal growth with those conversations. Early on, I had somebody tell me it was a hard no. And it was like a gut punch.
Yeah.
And this is someone close to me. And it was like a gut punch. And I had to move through I'm not trying to convince anyone. This is the people who are going to be called to this are going to be called to this. Like, it's going to get to the exact right people. That's part of being sourced. That fear of hearing a no just prevents me from hearing yeses. Like, if I'm afraid of hearing a no, if I make it mean something about me, if I take that gut punch, but thank heavens that happened super early on, because I got to move through it super early on. And I got really clear. Some people wanted to hear about it, but didn't exactly want to hear about it because they weren't sure, and like they didn't want to feel pressured. And I definitely had stories about pressuring people, or, and the truth is, all I can really do is help them get clear on their commitment, which is serving them anyway, right? So I'm providing value just by having the conversation, and share my excitement and my truth and what I know is possible for them if they step into this container. And then if that's not for them, well, maybe it'll be for them some other time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a now thing. Maybe it's just not for them, period. And that's all okay. I played a lot with that in this retreat, letting people have their own experience, not needing to fix it, not needing to control it, because that's a big thing for me, that I always wanted to manage everything and make it okay and make everybody feel okay. So I would avoid those conversations that might be uncomfortable, because I didn't want to make someone feel uncomfortable, and
Yes.
can I let them have that experience, right? If it makes
So
them
good.
feel uncomfortable looking at a big dream, and really maybe having to say no now, or wanting to say no now, not having the commitment at this time, which is perfectly fine too, you know?
Beautiful. I love that you said I got through that up front, like the hard no. And so you could kind of receive that and go, okay, well, if I can move through that, I'm ready for anything. And I'm curious, it makes me think of that. I would consider that a rite of passage. That's something that we've been talking about here quite a bit. The rites of passage of a transformational leader. Someone opting not to come would be a rite of passage. Having that, hard no, or, or the, even when you described some people being kind of curious but not wanting to schedule because they know if they get on and they're excited and then they can't afford it, or they can't schedule it, or they have to say no to you, that fear. Those are all rites of passage that you kind of learn to then go, oh, okay, this isn't about me. Okay, I've been here before, I know how to handle this. How helpful was it for you knowing these are rites of passage?
Oh, it was a big help. It was definitely a big help. And it was a big help when things happened other times as well, that I was like, oh, okay, I got through that. Because it's really only by having those experiences. We can talk about it forever. It's really
Yes.
only by having those experiences and realizing you don't die, right? That I didn't die from someone saying no, that I didn't die from someone leaving the group, and actually it felt super sourced and good,
Yeah.
and it actually felt like the best experience for both of us.
Beautiful.
Not only did I not die, I grew from it, right? And it's something else we've talked about, is expanding our capacity. Each time we go through one of those things, each time we go through a rite of passage and realize maybe we just barely got by it. Maybe we didn't do it, as perfectly or prettily or, as gracefully as we liked it. We still got through it. And each time we get through it, that's up leveling, that's expanding our capacity to do more, to go further, to reach more people, which is really what this is about, right? Is being a bigger change in the world, so that we need to reach more people to do that, right? And so each time we go through a rite of passage and we stumble through or we fly through, we are expanding our capacity, and we're really raising the vibration of the planet, which I think is most people in source communities' goal, right?
As you think about letting people have their own experience, you opted to take people to Africa, and I happen to know that I mean, it's called Open to the Magic. And part of your goal is for people to pay attention and be present and see what's unfolding right in front of them through watching the animals, and really getting, I love that you said what's real and what's not. And we know the heart of transformation is truth. And so seeing what's real and what's not is where it's at, right? And so, how was it for you bringing people to kind of be present and discover what's there, allowing them to have their own experience at the same time? Because there's like the experience of being the guide. You've been there 4 times, like you have an idea of what's possible and what you want them to experience. And then there's people coming in with whatever their energy is and whatever their expectations are and whatever lesson source has for them, which you may or may not know, right? You might have a clue
Yes.
as an
Yes.
intuitive, but sometimes you don't. How did you allow that? Like letting people have their experience while sharing your love?
So that was my intention, right? Was to have them experience the felt sense of being loved and supported by the land and the animals and by me. That's one of my deepest joys, is really caring for other people. Compassion magic, if you do the quiz, is one of my other magics. And it is a deep sense of joy for me supporting others. There have been times when I took that to fixing things for others. And so I definitely had to hold the letting people have their own experience. So, for example, one of the exercises we did, which was a surprise for the people, was there was a portion of time where people weren't allowed to use their phones or their cameras. when we were out on safari. I wanted to
Mm.
see what came up, but let them have the experience of not having that digital filter between them and the world,
I
right?
feel just like at the beginning of this call, feeling my shoulders relax. Like I feel that.
Well, and so I was committed to that. I knew that wasn't going to be a happy place for everyone. I knew like that this thing that we're putting between us and the world is a defense also. Like we're taking the pictures, we're filtering our experience, we're filming our experience, right? So I knew that that wasn't going to be comfortable. And I did have this moment of, we haven't seen a leopard yet. Would I cave if we saw a leopard? And I was not 100% sure, but I went into it fully committed, and we start every day with silence. And it's really about dropping in, because for me, going there is about connecting to that sense of oneness, to that unity consciousness, to the level at which we are not separate. And it's just easier to do in the wilds of Africa. It's easier to drop it. And so I'm like, okay, we're going on. We're not going to use the thing. And we were silent too. No talking, no devices. We stop. A hyena runs 5 feet in front of the car. Like, we're not even hardly out of the gate from the lodge. And a hyena runs in front of the car. And then another hyena runs out. And it's like, all of a sudden they're everywhere. Like 6 of them are darting in front of and in behind the car. And it looked a little like, you know, those movies where there's a long hallway with lots of doors and people are coming out and going in and missing each other. But they couldn't actually, they never crossed the hall. So they couldn't be coming out of these different doors. That's what it felt like. How did this hyena pop up over here? He was just back there. You know, it doesn't make any sense. And it felt like this wonderful whirling energy to me, like this life force in and around us, moving and circling. I was entranced and quickly forgot that I had created this exercise, and that would I feel bad that they didn't get to take pictures of it, right? But I was really more committed to them having a transformational experience than I was to them having a pleasant trip. You know, like you can go to Africa and you can take all the pictures you want.
Yeah.
A transformational retreat is something different. We debriefed this later. Yes, someone was not terribly happy with it. But upon reflection, so things I heard were like, I really felt present. I had a whole different experience than I would have if I was holding my camera. I heard all these things, and I heard, can you believe it? They were just right there out of the gate. And there's part of me that in a former time would have wanted to like make that better, you know, or fix that for them. I'm like, yeah, they were. Like, isn't that amazing? And part of the thing is, how do we know we would have even had that experience if we weren't all dropped in, fully present, without our filters? Like, they may not even come to visit us, right? It was a great exercise in letting people have their own experience. And I will also say, I'm glad it wasn't a leopard. I'm glad we saw the leopard later.
I'm glad you didn't have to be really
Yes,
tested.
I'm glad I didn't have to actually be. Yes, hyenas were cool. A leopard would have been a different level of testing me.
I feel some truth in the, would we have had that experience? Because, I have a dog, Oswald. I'm on my phone quite a bit. Like I work on my phone a lot, so I don't have to open my computer. So I'll be, and the moment I go to take his picture, like he knows, he turns his head away and he knows the camera's there. I don't know how.
So interesting, because we're all connected.
Exactly.
On that
So
level of energy, there is no difference.
I think you're spot on about the hyenas and the experience. Like you were receptive to that energetic.
Yes, absolutely. And I do want to tell one other brief story where holding someone's experience was not challenging. One of the gals had a attraction for lions, especially male lions, like The first day we saw one in the distance, and he was like this big. He was like in the distance, and he stood up, and I heard her go, "Oh, okay, that's super interesting. What's in that, right?" And we debriefed that, and we talked, and later in the week, a male lion, like the females and the cubs were going by the car really close to the car. And this male lion comes out from the side and is walking in a direct beeline for this person, not in an aggressive way at all, like in a confident, strong, healthy energy way, but not in a like, I'm going to hurt you kind of way. Beeline for her, like exactly where she was in the car. It wasn't until about 3 feet from the car that he turned away and left in front of the car. He
Hmm.
he walked directly up to her. We debriefed who got scared by that and what, like we debriefed what was going on for all the people, but for that person, for that participant, she didn't feel any fear. She felt like magically visited, right? And she didn't have all that many examples of healthy male energy in her life. And there was this big, beautiful, it was like he heard her when she gasped that first day, and that he came to visit later in the week. I really felt like he just came to visit her. Like, and I thought he was going to jump in her lap. I really did. He was super close. There's a video of it. He was super
Wow.
close.
Epic.
For that, she's never going to forget that in her entire life. I'm never going to forget that in my entire life, right?
And I know, Lisa, for you, you talked about having animal oracle parties. I know a huge part of your love and passion is really understanding the energies of the different animals and the significance. And so having a guide like you who can hold that and see that connection and who's connecting to what and perceive maybe what they're not even aware they're resonating with or they're noticing or how they're interacting. That's the magic of having a transformational guide like you when you're on a trip like that.
Thank you. And
So I
it's
can extrapolate based on my experience what that would have been like. And I really want to have you share about how people can retreat with you.
in true expansion magician like true to form. I'm not just holding one next year, I'm holding two. Because when I felt into the dates, one didn't feel alive. And doing it sooner, like waiting until October again, didn't feel alive. I'm holding one in May. I believe the first date is May 23rd, and the second date is September 29th. And they're for 8 days. And you can go to opentothemagic.com or opentothemagicinafrica.com. But what I'd really like people to consider is, how bold are you willing to be? What are you willing to do to get to those big dreams or to get clear on those big dreams, right? Like, because so many people can't even see, they have this kind of ache. They can't see what they can't see, but they know it's out there. Like, they know there's something more. I have this ache. I know there's something more. And then they're beating themselves up about, why can't I find my dream? Or why can't I, feel more alive in my life? And the truth is, sometimes we need to make big, bold moves to make big changes in our life. And Africa is big. It's far away. It's luxurious, which is definitely challenging for some people. It's a long airline. It's a lot of money. For some, it's like there are things that can be big to people.
Yeah.
And sometimes we need to take big, bold steps.
Yeah. And to take a big, bold step with someone who can hold it and who's been there and is guiding. I know what you created in terms of, the day by the sea and then into the land. And it's just a once in a lifetime experience where you'll walk out vibrationally never the same. So open to the magicinafrica.com. We'll put that below this video as well. And 2 dates, May and September next year. Lisa, what would you want to leave people with?
I would like to encourage them to really step into the wonder in their own life now. because all those things, there are animal signs, there's Oswald, there's all these things around us speaking to us all the time. Magic is always available to us. And what I want, the intention is so you experience this deeper connection, this unity consciousness, this oneness, love, and support in Africa. But the real intention is for you to bring that home with you. Like for you to live that every day, to live that magic in your life every day, that aligned knowing, that taking the next right action, trusting that when you're co-creating, everything is happening for you, not to you. I would absolutely love to help people experience that in Africa, but it's really, truly available to you every day.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for who you are in the world. And I'm just delighted with the sharing and where you're going.
Thank you so much. And thank you to you and the whole Source community who have helped make it possible.
You're welcome. All right. That's it for this episode of Shift the Field TV, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.